the business knowledge broker.
Hey, yo, Guru, you ready?
Hey, everybody. This is Candace Joseph, your favorite business guru. Listen, you are in for a great treat tonight on the Business Knowledge Broker Hour with Candace Joseph. Now, y'all know each and every episode, I bring you the best in entrepreneurship, nonprofit, community activists, and advocates. Let me tell you something. Tonight is an absolute treat, okay? When I say the person that is here tonight as my guest, she is everything. She is everything, but you already know how I do each and every show. I like for people to introduce themselves and tell you, the watchers, all about their greatness.
I'm Tameka Hollywood Robinson. I'm a native of Jasper, Texas. I am a graduate of Prairie View A&M University as well as Howard University, and I am delighted to be here today.
Listen, she playing it small. We gonna talk about Miss Tameka Hollywood Robinson. Okay, Jasper native. Okay, grandfather who is a very prominent person in Texas history. Okay, she comes from a long line of Prairie View A&M supporters. She is a woman who has attended 3 HBCUs, got to get that community love. She is a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha sorority, and she does some really great things in the community. She's a screenwriter. She's a DJ in her free time. See, people don't know. They don't know I think I know about DJ Hollywood. I know about DJ Hollywood. And she has wrote an awesome book, okay, entitled Dying to Belong. And thank you for being my guest tonight.
Thank you for having me.
Listen, I'm going to toot your horn, okay?
I appreciate it. I'm being very modest because I'm a little shy, but I'll warm up.
You know what? I'm going to be honest with you. I am an introvert at heart. I like to sit at home and listen to jazz and play chess by myself and read books. And, but sometimes in the state of, in entrepreneurship land and in podcast land, I had to become an extrovert in order for people to know that, hey, I'm here, I have a gift, and I am sharing it with all of you. And speaking of gifts, right? You were someone that, like I said, I do my homework on people. And I loved your story. I've heard it many times, but I want my listeners to get to know a little bit about your background. And, first of all, let's just I already know where they're going with this. What's up with the name Hollywood?
Let's see. I started writing when I was in the 3rd grade. I used to write little, imaginary stories. When I got to the 5th grade, my mom taught 5th grade, but I was in another class. But every time I would write a play, I would have my friends come out and they would have to act out my play. And so I had a really good friend from Jasper, Texas, and she named me Hollywood because I was very popular once I got to high school. So I was into everything. I was, I was the first person in my school to have their very own camcorder. And so I would bring that camcorder to school, record things, and that's how I got into really radio TV, and that's really how I majored in radio TV communications at Prairie View. But my really good friend, she nicknamed me Hollywood. And so it just stuck. And so by the time I got to Howard, everybody from Howard is on something different. And so nobody was really calling me that. But then by the time I got back, every time I would go back home, the name would just stick. Hollywood, Hollywood, Hollywood. So when people call me Tameka, I just look around who is that? So yeah.
Look, for the rest of this interview, I'm calling you Hollywood. That's what it is.
I appreciate it. Yeah. Yeah.
No, I absolutely love that. I love the fact that, you're someone from a small town who always, it seems like you kind of set your own path and kind of ran your own race and just decided to make a trail for yourself. I love the fact that you attended HBCUs. How was that prevalent to who you are as a person? How did that come about? Because I know a lot of times, I know for me being a Prairie View graduate, it was all about community, right? So what was some of the things that, attracted you to the HBCUs and then you said, yeah, this is a place. This is where I belong.
Well, my mom, starting off, my grandfather, he went to TSU first, and then he was drafted in the 50s. He was drafted to go to the army, and then he didn't get to finish. And then my mom, she went out to Prairie View in the 70s, and so she always had these like really funny stories that she would tell me and my two brothers about Prairie View. It was just like Prairie View was life. But once I got older, I started Thursday in any African American household, you had 7 o'clock, you had the Cosby Show. 7:30 was a different world. Every time I watched a different world, I saw a piece of me that was in the storyline. So I wanted to go to an HBCU, but then by the time I got to high school, I started looking at like different film schools, and I wanted to go to UCLA so bad, but I didn't get in. And so I rented a house and I tore up the little application. I was like, well, Mama, where am I gonna go to school? She was like, you can go to Prairie View. And I was like, oh man. So I didn't want to go to Prairie View. All my other friends were going to Prairie View, and I'm from a small town. I'm trying to get out of I'm trying to get out of the small town mentality. So I ended up going to TSU. Little did I know that TSU was a school, really a college for, just like, people from Houston. It's like a city,
Yeah, commuter school. Yeah.
And there was, I didn't relate to TSU. I really did. And I was like, man, I'm country at heart. So I went to my first Spring Fest at Prairie View in 1996. That was in March. By August of 1996, I was enrolled at Prairie View and on my way. I had packed all my stuff, and I was like, I've transferred to Prairie View, and you couldn't tell me nothing. And that gave me life because I got involved in so many things at Prairie View. I was in cab. I started writing for the Panther. And then, I started seeing the sorority girls, and I was like, well, I could be, what if I could do this? So, even when you're from a small town, because honestly, this is what I used to do. Nobody knew what Jasper was, right? So I would be, people were like, where you from? I'm like, oh, I'm from Houston. I went to Willow Ridge. Knowing I didn't go to Willow Ridge, but that, I had a cousin that went to Willow Ridge, and every time I mentioned my cousin, everybody knew my cousin. So that's what I would do. But then in 1998, what happened was Jasper made history. My grandfather became the first African American mayor of Jasper, Texas. Mm. And on his watch, our neighbor, James Byrd Jr., was, he was dragged to death by the 3 white men. So everybody started to know about Jasper, where Jasper was on the map. And then everybody started calling me Jasper. So, it was like a sense, like, at Prairie View, there was just a sense of community. Yeah. Had I not went to Prairie View, I wouldn't be the person that I am today. Prairie View raised me and made me who I am today. So I love, I love our whole slogan. Prairie View produces productive people, because that's who we are. It's what we come from. So, I can't say, I can't, and then, just going to Howard, just still like within a city, but it's nothing like Prairie View. So
yeah, I have to say, I enjoyed my time at Prairie View, and Prairie View really kind of brought me out of my shell a little bit, and it got me really thinking about the long term, right? Because like you said, from Houston, you're in the city, you thinking go, 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 now. You're thinking about today, not tomorrow. And Prairie View really helped me focus in and hone in on those skills. Mm-hmm. And it really taught me some things. So it's like an extension of what I learned growing up in Houston, in the inner city, and then going to Prairie View. So for me, it was a combination. But I have to say, I love the fact that your book, I want to tell people about your book. Your book is something that when I read it, it took me away. It was one of those things where I can envision myself in every piece of the book and within some of the characters. So I want you to tell the audience about Dying to Belong.
Okay, so Dying to Belong is it's a book written by me, and it is really about Black sorority life, and it's basically what happens mentally to Black women when they do not get picked to be in a sorority, and what, and some of the things that happen to people that are picked in a sorority, the certain type of mental strain it puts on those people, especially if you're not mature or or ready for this type of situation. The concept of the book came because I pledged in 1998, and by the time I graduated in 99, there was a story written by Essence magazine, and it was called Swept Away. That was in like it was either 2000 2001, and I read this article about these two women, African American women, that were pledging the same sorority that I was in, and they were, their hands were tied behind their backs, and they took them out to the ocean and they drowned. Right, so these two girls, they died, and I don't know, I just was like, these people actually physically died, literally, to be in a sorority. So the concept started just like, it was just like it was something that just kept nagging me, like, you should write a story, you should write a book about it, you should definitely write a book about it. But then I was afraid, because I'm in a sorority, the same sorority I'm in has, this has happened, and there was this huge lawsuit, and I just, it just kept tugging at me. And then all of a sudden something just popped in my head, and I was like, I'm gonna write the story from the I wrote it backwards, and then I filled in, because now, mind you, it took me almost 25 years to publish this book. I started writing this book in 2001, and life just started to happen.
Yeah.
But eventually, I finished. I was productive. I finished the book. But this book deals with domestic violence. This book deals with mental strain, mental just our, just our mental capacity, and the stress that's on college students. It deals with homosexuality. It deals with uh HIV, AIDS. There are a lot of things. And so the characters, what I learned in film school is that when you put your characters through uh struggle after struggle, it makes for a good book. And I
Yeah.
think that, once you get in, once even when you start off with the book, it just pulls you in because of the relationship with the main character and her mother. And just keeping secrets, because there is a part in this book, and I won't tell you what it is, but in 2006, while I was still writing this book, something in my life happened that I had already wrote about in the book. So it came into fruition. And that made me even more afraid to publish the book, because I felt like if I publish this book, people's feelings are gonna be hurt. But then I'm like, but maybe somebody will learn from the book. So as you can see, like, it's relatable today, because people are still what, dying in sororities and fraternities from pledging and hazing, different things
Yeah.
like that. So
Well, look, I read the book. You touched on that. You touched on the sister to sister relationship. A lot of
mhm,
times, a lot of books really miss the mark on sibling relationships.
mhm,
But how you wrote it in this book, it was like, yeah,
mhm,
yeah. And it did talk about that family dynamic. Then
mhm,
you're talking about how, people that are young in college are navigating relationships
mhm,
and what that may look like in regards to being in a romantic relationship with
mhm,
someone, or a friendship, or, anything like that. I
mhm,
love how you touched on different things.
mhm,
And for me, being someone, like you said, I know you went to film school,
mhm,
so I know about the script and the storyboard. I could just imagine when I read this book, I sat back and I closed my eyes and I imagined what that was like for you. And I'm going to ask this question in regards to writing about, the mental illness, the PTSD, the domestic violence. Like, how did that really affect you in the writing process? Because sometimes, like you said, you took something that you read, and it turned into an idea for a book for you. But
mhm.
what was that process like for you? Like, how did you as a writer get through writing those traumatic scenes where it is very vivid and the drama is thick and real in this book. Okay, how did you get through that process while writing?
That was, I mean, like I said, 20 years it took me, to complete the book. I wanted to write a book that was realistic, and it was relatable. There were times when, even when I was writing about the one character, Debbie Jean, I saw someone that I knew, and I said, what if I made her go through this type of situation? I
Mhm.
saw another character, and I said, okay, what if I made it? Basically, I saw so many people that like I was envisioning these people, and I was giving them these different characteristics, and it sometimes it became scary because it was like, ooh, this might be too real, and it might be somebody trying to figure out, what it is. So I tried to be very creative, but I also tried to keep it as real as I could, because I wanted people to be able to relate really to each character, like seeing yourself in each character. Because I took pieces of me and I put them in each character. So there's a piece of me in pretty much every character, because if you know me and you know the way that I talk and I speak, you can see that in the book. You can read it in the book.
Ooh, look, all I have to say is this. I read this book and I said, yeah, yeah, this hits every mark.
Hmm.
In the space of how it's written beautifully. The character development is crazy. Like, I love it. I love the fact that you said every person that you meet or people that you know, you included characteristics of their life. And it really comes out. It comes out in the dialogue, it comes out in the description. Like,
Hmm.
I can see it playing through, you know?
Hmm.
Now, this is my question. You said 20 years
Hmm.
to finish the book.
Hmm.
uh from the time you finished the book till you released it, what was that time frame?
I started writing this book in 2001, and then in 2024 I published it. I self-published through Amazon KDP.
Okay, all right. So for those that are out there that may be going through that process where they're trying to decide, should they self-publish, should they go through a publishing house, how has the self-publishing route been for you?
It, it was very simple for me, because I think back, I would say maybe like 15 years before, I was nervous because I was like, well, who would publish this book? Am I gonna get in trouble for writing this book? And so, but I don't know. Like, Amazon came through it, and it made the process, very smooth. You just, you write your book, you get your editor and everything like that, and you just upload it, and it was just the easiest thing to do. And so that, is what made it easier. The hardest thing is being a writer, but you don't have marketing skills. So it's like, now I wrote the book, but what do I do with it now? I don't have a marketing plan, because I was so busy trying to, like, get the book, publish the book, but now what do I do with it?
Oh, so the book is published.
Hmm.
You've done your book releases. You have been celebrated within the community, different spaces for this book.
Hmm.
So are you expanding this book out to workshop series, seminars? Like,
That's
because sometimes, like you said about the marketing piece, is that like some of the things that's in your plan, or how do you envision that for you?
that's the goal too, because you said earlier that it should be a requirement. So the
Yeah.
goal is to get it at different universities and just kind of like go from there. Because I mean, I think it's capable of being a number one bestseller. Uh,
Look, and whatever we can do here at the Business Knowledge Broker Hour to help you get there, I said, let's go.
yeah.
The reason why I said it should be a prerequisite because um, I think that anybody really dealing with any life challenges should read this book.
Hmm.
When it comes to pledging sorority, I pledged at Prairie View A&M in 2001 for Sigma Gamma Rho, and
Hmm.
it was a great experience for me.
Hmm.
When they talk about like the different experiences people went through and the different things that you see in the news, I didn't go through any of that. you
Mm-hmm.
know, and it was a really true thing about sisterhood. And now,
Mm-hmm.
don't get me wrong. Now, it was a lot of different personalities. We was clashing.
Mm-hmm.
Don't get me wrong,
Oh
because you don't clash. But I
yeah.
think that this book touched on a lot of different subjects when you're talking about college life and you're trying to figure out how to fit in,
Mm-hmm.
how to be accepted. Really,
Mm-hmm.
you know, for me, that every all through this book, that's what it kept popping through my mind about the word acceptance.
Mm-hmm.
Like, but think about it, it's people nowadays that deal with different things about being accepted. And this, in your book, you talk about joining a sorority, but in life we talk about people that try to fit in at work, people that try to fit in relationships, and they do different things
Mm-hmm.
to fit in. So for me, I want to say thank you for being a catalyst for,
Mm-hmm.
first of all, having this conversation, because we see it a lot when people you know, they join something, they want to belong, and then later on in life they decide that that wasn't for them, or that
Mm-hmm.
wasn't the route for them.
Mm-hmm.
And it definitely happens. So I want to say thank you for being that person to put this on my mind.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because you think about that. I was like, man, I graduated from college 20. You know,
Yeah.
I'm not gonna age myself, but when I read this book, it really brought back a lot of memories of college life, and I think it should be a prerequisite, because people, you know, they're doing a lot of things. Like
Mm-hmm.
when I read the title, I thought about a lot of things that people do to
Mm-hmm.
belong.
To
So
belong.
thank
Yeah.
you for being that catalyst.
Yeah. I think the most important thing that I learned from this book was that eventually I had to accept myself for who I was. I don't feel like when I was at Prairie View and trying to be an AK in the 90s, I knew my sexuality, right? But I didn't think that my sexuality would get me into a sorority. So I'm glad that I had decent people that looked at me as a human being, and they
Yeah.
looked at my grades and my intelligence and the family that I came from to say she's good enough to be on the line. Now, mind you, I come from a line. I'm from the largest line of Alpha Kappa, really pretty much at Prairie View in if you want to say historical terms, because uh it was 84 people
Yeah.
on my line. So if people think that even if you had 10 people personalities clash. But one
Yes.
thing I did learn is that you learn so much about girls and just women in, like, when you hang with them, you run with them. I was learning so much because I am a middle child of two boys. So a lot of things that I didn't get at home, I got from them. Like certain things, good things, not all bad things. And so I'm just happy that I was able to be accepted.
I love that.
There was a strain, there was anxiety for me to be, accepted. And so, I come from a prim and proper family. I would say like a first family. I had to wear skirts and dresses to church, at funerals, different events. Even when, we were, younger on campus, and we had a seminar, I couldn't be my true self, right? I could only be my true self behind closed door, like with, not in front of, like, you had to set an example for the other girls that were coming before you. And I saw how there were a lot of people that got turned away, from my sorority because they wore pants, because they may have wrote a letter in pencil because they didn't know. So I'm grateful for the people at Prairie View that guided me and helped me and assisted me with a lot of different things that like. And so when you take the 90s versus now, it's so different. It's
Yeah.
like, oh yeah, it's cool to be, and I'm just like, ooh, I know for a fact that if it was back then, oh, I don't know if you would have got in, but thank God I did, because I was at that age, I was dying to belong too. So,
Yeah.
and I can't judge those two girls that were killed in California, because what if that was me in that
Mm.
mindset? What if that was me in that mindset? So it just goes to show you, like, no matter what, like, I was dying to belong. I put on a skirt just to be in that organization, just to be accept it instead of being my true self. But I am my true self now, and that's a reason why I was like, you know what, I'm not hesitating anymore. I'm putting a book out, and it is what it is.
Yes. I love that because a lot of times we don't talk about that as um you know as people that have come before, like you said, the generation now. We
Mm-hmm.
don't talk about our struggles. We don't talk about the fact that we want to be accepted all the way around and really fought for a place
Mm-hmm.
within everything, within the sorority life,
Mm-hmm.
within our friend circles,
Mm-hmm.
within our family kinship, and even at the workplace. Like we don't talk about that often, and
We
I think
don't.
that's something that we really need to talk about. Look, you and I gonna talk after this. We
Yeah,
need to get
yeah,
some things together
yeah.
because I totally get that. And you said you were surprised about like you didn't know how people were going to react to the book when it came out. What was like your most surprising reaction that you got to this book?
Well, I had a line sister that read the book, and she was like, she was just in awe. She was like, "Girl, I love this book. I got to read it again." Then she passed it down to somebody else, and she let them read it. And so the it was just the overwhelming response that I got. It was so, it was positive. Where I was thinking it's gonna be negative, that they're gonna think I'm talking about them, or somebody's gonna think I'm talking about their sorority, yada yada yada. Why did she use the word diva and all of this? And I'm just like, well, the word diva don't belong. I mean, I could say the word diva belongs to Diana Ross if I want to be.
Yeah.
So I was glad, I was overwhelmed with joy that people really were accepting the book. And it was, and everyone's like, man, I didn't know you could write like that. I didn't either. I knew, but I didn't really think that, it was gonna come off like this. So I'm happy with my finished product. I'm proud of myself, and I'm proud of who I have become since my book is, came out.
Look, you're giving nuggets tonight, okay? You're giving nuggets. It doesn't matter. These are some nuggets I got, okay? I know those that are tuning in at home, they getting some nuggets too. This is the nuggets I got.
Mm-hmm.
If you start something, finish it. It
Mm-hmm.
doesn't matter how long.
Mm-hmm.
It's okay to feel like you not sure of your placement in the world as long as you eventually find your placement.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. I love the fact that you said, hey, seek out things for yourself. And it's okay to show people that you have these talents.
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of times we're scared to show people that we're smart, that
Mm-hmm.
we have a particular skill set. So I feel like why hoard with the gifts that the universe gave you, right?
Right.
So I love the fact that you tapping into some stuff tonight. You are tapping in. But I have to ask,
Mm-hmm.
what's that one lesson that you want people to walk away with after reading this book? What's something that maybe a theme or a particular message or a feeling that you may want people to come away with after reading this?
To thy own self be true.
Nuggets.
Mm-hmm.
Nuggets.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to say, since the release of this book, how has your life changed?
Oh, I feel like I'm Hollywood. I do.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I feel like I accomplished something that was so colossal and paramount, and it's like I just want to hold my chest out, like, yeah, because it makes me feel like I have a brilliant mind. When
Yeah.
people come to me and they talk to me about the book, we have different conversations. I'm like, yeah, because it. Let me tell you, it's certain things that, like, even in the book, that I'm like, I wrote that, I said that, they went through that. I didn't even know. Like, sometimes you don't even, like, when you start the writing process, sometimes you don't even know that you are going to touch on this type of topic. And
Hmm.
so even at night when I would sleep, there were times when God would just give me ideas, and I would get them, like, let me go write this down, and let me put this character through this, and see,
Nice.
see what happens. Yeah.
Look, let me tell you something, because you covered it all. Okay? You covered it all in this book. I said, okay, you got the sister that's looking out for the other sister. You got the mama that's
Mhm.
like, no nonsense, very cutthroat, very
Mhm.
blunt.
Mhm.
I said, okay, I'm reading. then when you get to the other different characters and you see them develop, and I'm just like, whoa.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I asked about. That's why I wanted to know, like, okay, you finished it. It didn't matter
Mm-hmm.
when you finished it. You decided, hey, I'm gonna do this.
Mm-hmm.
And I said that is a beautiful thing because we have to push each other, and I'm glad that you did this, and I'm glad that everybody is standing behind you,
Mm-hmm.
cheering you on. You say you popping your collar, you Hollywood now. I love it. I
Thank you.
love this.
I am. I am. I smile. I smile more too. Yeah, I let people see my pretty teeth. I smile more because I'm like, I'm Hollywood now. Yeah, yeah.
Sounds
Yeah,
sounds like to me you're free.
yeah. And that's it. That's it right there. Like I have never felt so free in my life, because we go through certain relationships, and sometimes we get in relationships and people can hold us back.
Yeah.
And but like once once you just kind of like when you get by yourself, because that's what I had to do. I had to really get by myself and say, finish the book. Finish
Mm-hmm.
the book. You can't call yourself Hollywood and you still out here just talking about the book. Yeah, I'm gonna get it. No, you gotta finish the book. And that's exactly what I did. And so I see myself as a success. That's what I see myself as, because I did something that I didn't think, like I started it, but I didn't think I could do it. One thing I always say is like when when you say like when you start something, you finish it. I remember being in cross country. I always came in last, had to get up on a Saturday morning and run. But all my friends around me in high school dropped out. And my mama would never, every time I said I want to quit, she would never let me quit. But I'm like, this is the same person that complains about having to pick me up and, at night or take me in the morning. And I'm like, why would you won't let me quit? She said, because if you quit, you will never learn that like when you start something, you have to finish it.
Ooh.
Yeah.
I gotta ask this question. I'm
Go
gonna
ahead.
ask this question because I'm dying to know. Okay, because I'm gonna keep dropping this photo. Right, I want people to see this book. Is there a sequel, a film? Like, what's the next chapter? I know you said workshops and seminars in the works. Definitely getting it in other people's hands is definitely in the works. But I'm thinking about filmmaker Hollywood.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I've been in talks with a guy that went to Prairie View who works for Kevin Hart Productions and Lifetime, and we have been staying in touch and talking about some things. It's just funny because I never like I didn't really think I didn't really think people would want a sequel. Now it's like, oh, you got to write a sequel, but and then I feel like I got another story that's way better than this. So
Okay.
it's like
Okay.
so it's like I gotta get it out of my head, because if I don't, then I just don't want my work to I want my work to speak for itself. So
Yeah.
I am working on some things. I have so many ideas that I get overwhelmed sometimes, and I feel like the main character Ryan is tugging at me like you need to do something at the end. You need to do something with the sisters. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. Because that sister to sister relationship got me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not. Look, I don't give too much away, but that when I say that sister to sister relationship got me, and I was like, okay,
kind of puts you in the mind of us, Beyonce and Solange in a
yeah,
sense.
it
Yeah.
does. It
Uh-huh.
really does. See, I was
Yeah.
thinking more of like Felicia Rashad and Debbie Allen. That's who I was thinking of. Like, I can see their faces the whole time I'm reading this.
Mm-hmm.
That's whose faces, I thought about. And it was kind of like one of those things like, listen, look, I'm over here casting a movie for you, okay?
Yeah,
Look, I'm sitting here I'm thinking of people that would, yeah, this person would do that. This person could do that. When I reread it this weekend, because I read it when I first bought it, and then I read it again this weekend, and I just to prep for this interview, but I decided, no, we're not going to talk about the characters in this book because I can go on about some of these characters, and some of them made me mad, and I feel like I wanted to fight them in real life, right? But I can visualize certain people who are in the industry now
Mm-hmm.
playing certain characters in this book.
Yeah.
And look, I'm be honest with you. I'm manifesting for you.
Yeah.
I,
Thank
I
you. I
am
appreciate it.
manifesting for you. That's just one of those things. Like, you know, I love when greatness is really in my midst.
Mm-hmm.
Because truthfully, I came out to support you as, being another woman who's masculine of center,
Mm-hmm.
being a woman that went to Prairie View A&M University, just like I did,
Mm-hmm.
and just a woman, period.
Mm-hmm.
And you put something out there and said, hey, come out and support. And listen, I'm gonna pull up Queen. Somebody said they having something. I'm on my way.
Yeah,
You know,
I appreciate that because I kept saying I was trying to figure out like when did you go to Prairie View and were we there at the same?
yeah.
Were we there
We
at the
said at
same
the same
time?
time.
We were.
Um, yeah, the first person that you have listed in your acknowledgement was my sweet mate. And we went to middle school together.
Sweet mate.
I don't say people names on shows unless they know that I'm going to drop their name.
I got to look. Okay.
First name. We look at it together.
Let's
Under your, when you turn the page, under your acknowledgments.
see.
So people got to buy the book to find out who that is. Yeah,
That's
yeah, yeah. We all went to middle school
that,
together.
that's my best friend.
Yeah, all of us went to middle school together.
That
Yeah.
is that is the friend that encourages me, has always encouraged me to, one, be myself, two,
Yeah.
you can do it, and three, let's just live this life and see what happens. That is, oh,
Cause
you
I
got one.
remember that. Look. I'm going to give her shout out because I think it is due. Okay, I'm talking about Crystal Holmes Montgomery. Okay, we just gonna go and give her a shout out so she let her know she's gonna be a part of this interview. It is what it
Yeah.
is. But I remember her from middle school. She was a great person. Always really you know how you had somebody pat you on the back and be like, "Go on, girl, yeah."
Mhm.
That was her freshman year. I can honestly tell you, I was one of those wildflowers. I used to stay in the dorms because to me, I was that focused. I went at a party and I was
Yeah.
focusing. And she'd be like, "Go to Roberts with me," and I'd be like, "Girl, no, like I don't want to sweat like that." But always, always that cheerleader. Like always that
Always.
cheerleader. Used to go in there. They used to be the glam squad in the mornings. Okay, that's
Mhm.
why I had 8 o'clock classes so I can get up at 6 and miss all of their glam squad in the morning.
Mhm.
So when they got up and got to class, but no, I wanted to say, when I saw that, I said, oh yeah, she got good people around her.
Mhm.
And a lot of times people don't realize how great friendships really are, and having those lifelong friends that are really there for you. And
Mhm.
look, some of them might be characters in a book I might write one day. Because I have to say, reading your book, it really encouraged me to kind of really do that deep dive. And I hope that it gives other people that deep dive as well, to show that no matter what space, what medium you use,
Mhm.
be your creative self, show your gifts. It doesn't matter. I don't care if it's photography, filmmaking, writing, poetry, singing and dancing, or if you can build the best 10-story building there is. I'm one of
Yeah.
those people. I love to see people living in their gifts and living in their truth
Yeah.
and really, really being content.
Yeah.
I love to see that on people. I do. And I want people to definitely connect with the book. I definitely want people to connect with you because all I see is manifestation of greatness.
Mhm.
And I say thank you for writing this because I didn't, it made me think, this book made me sit back and think about my process of Pledges
Yeah.
to Row. It made me really sit back and really think about those times and about the people that I met along the way in this thing called life journey,
Mhm.
you know? So I love it.
Yeah.
So what advice would you give to someone who's dying to belong, whether in a sorority, community, relationship, or even within themselves?
I think for people that are in, like, young people that are in college. I can't emphasize this enough. Do your research on any organization, on any type of relationship that you want to be in. You gotta do your research because you see so many people now that are denouncing their letters. And sometimes, you look at people like, because honestly, I can say this, I was embarrassed 2 weeks ago because I came across someone who was my soror, right? And I remember she's young, a lot younger than me, but I remember when she pledged and she was so happy to be, in the organization. And I saw I hadn't seen her in like 10 years. And I was like, hey. And she was like, I said, hey, soror. She was like, just looked at me. And I was like, what's going on? And then it was another old school soror that was at the table. And by the time she got to the table, she said, I'm not a soror. No, I told the older soror, I said, well, she's a soror. She's like, so she said, no, I'm not. And I said, huh? And she said, I denounced my letters. And I was like, oh, okay. I didn't get into it. I didn't say anything. But the old head was like, what? I ain't never heard nobody. And I was like, oh my God. And I'm tapping her like, shh, it's going to be okay. It's okay. People want to know. But if people can do whatever, they can make whatever choice that they want to make. But my advice is to always do your research. Learn why, your learn who your founders really were. What work they put into building, and creating the organization, and what principles that organization is founded upon.
Yeah.
I would just say that because I just feel like with anything, like I can't just go apply for this job. I gotta know what this company is about.
Yep.
You gotta do your research, and you have so many people now that it's like, oh, I'm in an organization. But what does it mean though?
Yeah, that's true.
If I asked you your founders, would you know them? If I asked you, who incorporated, what year, what time, where, would you know them? Would you know that information? So my whole thing is just do your research. And you don't always have to do what's out of the norm. Like you have to use common sense when you join any organization.
Yeah.
If you can't swim, don't let anybody take you out to the water, because sometimes people are not gonna save you. You have to save yourself. So you have to use common sense. That's just something that I would tell my 3 nieces if they decided to join an organization. Use that. That's what God gave it to you for. You don't have to be like everybody else, and it's okay if you don't join an organization. If you see yourself not being that person, then that's okay, because what I did was for me. What you do for the rest of your life is going to be for you. It's we don't have to be the same, but we can still be respectful, and we can still honor each other. So that's what I would say to anybody.
Oh, I love that. Like I said, you're giving away nuggets tonight. Follow your dreams. Be who you are. And be okay if something's just not for you and it's not meant for you. It's okay to be yourself and say, no, I don't like that. I know I don't want to do that.
Right.
I love that.
Right.
I love that. All I have to say is this. I'm waiting to see, what Hollywood Robinson put out. Whether it's a book, listen, it could be the next DJ mix. I'm waiting. Look, I'm excited. I'm waiting. I said, okay, wait a minute. Filmmaker, book writer, DJ, very proud sorority member, very proud alumnus. What's next? What's next for Hollywood? What's next?
I don't really, that's when you ask me that, I have to really think about that, because I know I want to write another book. I want to write 2 more books. One, the sequel to Dying to Belong, and another great story that takes place at an HBCU that I wrote a script about when I was at Howard. So and I got an A+ on it. So I know that if I wrote a book about it, I know that it would be a great story to tell. So what I always try to do is I always try to tell stories that you never really see on television. Like we've seen different things on Lifetime about pledging, but they don't dive in
Mm-hmm.
into it. Like we don't get to the mental part. We don't understand why, somebody is running around here at 45 and 55 years old because they did not get picked in a sorority. And so they have an issue and an attitude that just kind of
Mm-hmm.
like stayed with them because they're holding on to
Yeah.
that. So I'll stick to writing. Yeah, I like it.
Well, thank you for your advocacy through your writing.
Hmm.
You talked about domestic violence. You talked about relationships. You talked about mental illness, PTSD.
Hmm.
Okay. You talked about the family dynamic. You talked about the male female dynamic as well.
Hmm.
So I want to say thank you for touching all of these points that really anybody that read it can really relate to, see themselves in a character, and you are a catalyst for change. And
Hmm.
thank you. I know you talked about your grandfather being a part of history,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
I want to thank you for being a part of history.
Well, I appreciate that. And thank you for having me on the show. And I never got to thank you for coming to my book signing.
Well, you
Um,
was popular. You was Hollywood that day, okay? You was popping in the scene.
I
I
did.
said, let me get in, get out. Everybody taking pictures, want to get their book signed. Look, I made sure I got
Yeah,
my book
I was
signed.
on top. I felt like I was on top of the world, and I was so proud of
Yeah,
myself. So yeah, so thank you, and I really like just like because you have a platform and you're letting me talk about my book and tell my story. So I greatly appreciate that. And with especially with as you say, Prairie View looks out for Prairie View. So that's
yeah.
that's one thing I always try to do. Oh, you going to Prairie View? Okay, well let me help you. If you need anything, hey, let me help you. I know somebody
Mhm.
that knows somebody that knows somebody. So yeah, I really appreciate that. So I'm not just elated, but I am eternally grateful for you. So thank you.
Now, I appreciate it. When I say I can't wait to see the greatness, I cannot see the greatness. I can't wait to hear more about the conversations that this book is going to bring out, and I can't wait to hear about the lives that it changed, because it definitely changed my perspective on some things that I really truly didn't even think about in the space of uh, being accepted.
Hmm.
So for me, that was I got some really good lessons from this. What I have to say is this: thank you for being a storyteller. Thank you for having the strength and the endurance to go through the writing process, to put your thoughts down on paper and to publish it. And it's a part of the Library of Congress, which is a part of history, which means you are cemented in history. Thank you for being.
Thank you. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, because a lot of times we don't. I want to give people their flowers while they're here. I want to
Mhm.
let people know that the words that you put out, the strength and the courage and the sacrifice that
Mhm.
you went through in order to put these words on paper for
Mhm.
all of us to enjoy is beautiful. Thank
Thank
you, thank you, thank you. Because a lot of times we forget, like, we're here too. We read about other people in history books,
you.
but one
Mhm.
of the reasons why I do this platform, because I want people to know every time that someone starts a business, write a book, write a poem, goes viral, something
Mhm.
like that. You're cementing yourself in history. So thank you for being a part of the history books. Thank you for being a great product of Prairie View A&M University. Listen, I always give Prairie View shout outs because it made me the person I am
Today.
today.
Mhm.
And I want people to get the book. Where can people buy it? Book you for speaking engagements, panel discussions, seminars, because I know you got the workbook coming out to Dine to Belong. I can't wait to see it. And where can they send their invitation to get you to come speak at colleges, high schools, and even nonprofit organizations?
Okay, you can purchase the book on Amazon. You just go to Amazon.com, type in either Hollywood Robinson or Dying to Belong, and the book will populate. And then if you want to book me on any platform, I am at hollyrobmedia@gmail.com.
Listen, thank you for being history. Thank you for being greatness. Thank you for the love that you poured into this book, and we all get to really enjoy it. Look, thank you for being someone who is living in your truth and loving the peace that it brings. Just thank you, thank you, thank you, and definitely thank you for being my guest. Look, guys, you
Thank you.
already know the hour is up. Hollywood Robinson was in the building. I connected with her. I want you guys to connect with her too. Because sometimes you never realize that you in the same place at the same time with another person of greatness. And that's our story here. We knew the same people, but we never connected. But here we are some years later. I ain't going to tell you how many because then that's going to age me. Here we are together, discussing this great piece of work. So as with each and every week, I'm going to continue to bring you great people that are out here making an impact in the communities in which they live. And look, we out. This CEO, we out. We are out of here. Grab Dying to Belong. Grab it. Go get it. And this is the thing. I don't want you to pass it on after you read it. I want you to buy it for 5 people and give it out to them. You can give it out at Kwanzaa, birthday parties, bar mitzvahs. We want this book out here. So let's tap into the greatness. And then, of course, you definitely got to book DJ Hollywood for all of your parties, mixtapes, house parties. Look, club events. Let's go. It's go time. Get into the greatness of Hollywood Robinson. Thank you. Good night.
Strategies, tips, the business, knowledge, broker, hour.